Welcome back. We've changed our format a little bit from previous days, and one of our aims today is to have some talks from people involved more directly in the energy industry about some of the problems, and maybe look at some of the mathematical aspects of it and the areas which mathematicians might make contributions. But it's more a brainstorming session than either the tutorial sessions that we had earlier in the week, or the fairly high-level discussion of issues we had yesterday afternoon. Our first speaker, just before we do that, for half an hour, is Dr. Samantha Riches from the EPSRC Energy Programme, and she is going to talk about EPSRC's vision of that, what the opportunities are under that programme, and how people can get more involved. Samantha.
Thank you. Okay, so I work for EPSRC, and within EPSRC I work for the Research Council's UK Energy Programme. Oh, sorry, here we go. So I'll just start off by talking about the sort of funding landscape in energy. So the Research Council, as you can see, we're very much in the research end of the research to sort of pre-commercial deployment spectrum, but there are a number of other funding bodies around which kind of span this thing. So we also work with the Technology Strategy Board, so that's a little bit further up towards deployment, and also the Energy Technologies Institute. So we work in partnership with a lot of these bodies. For example, we work in partnership with the Technology Strategy Board, with joint calls and things. We're actually the largest funder of the Energy Technologies Institute, and we sit on all their strategic advisory committee groups and also their programme management board as well. And the Carbon Trust, we work with them on a lot of things. They co-fund us on the first round of Supergen, for example, so that's another thing that we do. And there are also a number of other funding bodies, and we work with all of these, and so it's part of a bigger landscape of energy research and development. So, as I said before, I work for EPSRC, but there are 7 research councils that work under the RC UK umbrella, of which EPSRC is one of them. These all fund world-class research and training in their own areas through a variety of different mechanisms. However, there are a number of big challenges that are faced by both the UK and the world in general. And these kind of need to be addressed over the next 10 to 20 years, and these require novel interdisciplinary approaches in order to tackle them. So in order to achieve this, there are 7 cross-council programmes that sort of attack these from a number of different directions. For example, we've got ageing, digital economy, energy, which is the one I work for, food security, global uncertainties, living with environmental change, and nanoscience through engineering to application. These are led by different research councils, so EPSRC lead on energy, digital economy and nanoscience, whereas the other research councils lead on the other ones. So this is the way the energy programme works. So we work with 5 of the 7 research councils, so obviously you've got your engineering and physical sciences of low carbon technologies and things like that, but we're also looking at other things, for example, the economic and social aspect, so anything from demand side reduction right through to NIMBYism and that sort of thing. Obviously there's an environmental aspect to energy research as well, but biology aspects, so for example biofuels and that sort of thing, so we work with EPSRC on that. And STSC obviously provides the large scale equipment that allows us to do our energy research. So we work in partnership with all these research councils and represent all these different areas. So the mission of the energy programme is to position the UK to meet its energy and environmental targets, policy goals through high quality research and postgraduate training. So these are the targets, you may be already familiar with them. So 80% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, 15% of energy from renewable sources by 2020, and increases in energy efficiency. And so our main drivers are to tackle climate change through reducing carbon dioxide emissions, as well as ensuring energy security and energy affordability. So the way that we plan to do this is through a number of different things. So for example, we look to support a full spectrum of energy research. So for example, we don't really know where we're going. We can have a good guess of where we're going in terms of energy research, but we don't really know. So we need to equip the UK for a number of different possible future scenarios. So we're looking to represent all areas of energy research equally. And we also want to increase our international visibility, because obviously energy isn't just a UK issue, it's a global issue. So we also want to add value for the research we're doing by working internationally with a number of other countries as well. So that's quite an important part of our portfolio to do that. Something that's quite important for the industrialists in the audience, we seek to work in partnership with a number of, so I already talked about how we work in partnership with other funding bodies, but we want to work in partnership with industry as well, and that ensures the relevance of the research that we're doing. And there's quite a feedback loop there as well, so obviously the research that we're funding feeds directly into development and deployment, and then once you get further down that route you begin to spot further research challenges, so it's to ensure that feedback loop is continuing and to make sure these things are quite intermeshed with each other. So we look to work in partnership with industries as well as other funding bodies and other things like that, so and that's quite an important part for us. And we also want to expand the UK research capacity, so that's to ensure the health of the research base, but also ensure that we have adequately trained people to take us into our future energy scenarios that they can go on, for example, in nuclear or different areas like that. So we want to ensure that, and I guess another thing that's quite important for this audience is to ensure that people that have the right skills, they're actually applying this to energy. So mathematicians, try and encourage you guys to get involved in energy research and apply your skills and expertise in that area. So our investment routes, we fund through universities and institutes, so we don't fund companies directly in their research, but they can, like I said, we can work in partnership with them to fund research at universities and things. And the way that the research councils work is that we have, or EPSRC work, is that we have managed and responsive mechanisms. So as a quick summary for those that aren't familiar, our responsive mode is when, say, a researcher at a university wants to do a piece of research in an area and they write up a proposal. That comes into us, and then we use independent expert guidance to help us make investment decisions. So that goes to postal peer review, so that can be through industrialists or academics, and they will review the research proposal. It then goes to a panel meeting, and then we'll generate a rank ordered list and fund as far down that list as our money will allow us to the quality cut-off line. Managed mode is similar, except we're looking at our portfolio of research and essentially spotting gaps and areas that we want to increase research in that area. So we'll issue calls for proposals in certain areas. And we've got a few calls open or planned at the moment, so I'll talk about those in a bit. And as I said before, we work in partnership with industry and other stakeholders, and we don't have many conditions on that other than we need to publicise our involvement. And also we don't enter into exclusive agreements with industry, so we reserve the right to work with whoever we like on whatever we like, really. So that's the other condition to that. Oops, sorry. So this is a bit of a flavour of what the energy programme portfolio is. So I talked before about managed and responsive mode. The energy programme itself is an entirely managed programme, so we don't have responsive mode. But that doesn't mean that you can't put in a responsive mode energy proposal. I'll talk about that in a second. So this is the managed energy programme. This is some of the areas we're funding. So you can see that we do support a full spectrum of research. So we've got our renewables there, energy efficiency, hydrogen and fuel cells, conventional, nuclear fusion and fission, and then whole system, social, economic and policy and that sort of thing, so the more the ESRC space stuff there. As you can see, it's quite well balanced. Nuclear fusion is quite big, so we're the funder of Cullum, so we put in 20 million per annum into that, so that's why that chunk is so big. But as I said, that's not the only energy research that EPSRC is doing. So that pie chart I showed you before is this section here, but there are other routes to funding energy research. That's our managed energy programme here. We also have fellowships, training, other managed programmes support research into energy as well, so they have calls and other things like that. A point to note here is 20% of our energy research EPSRC is in responsive mode. So if you have a responsive mode proposal that you want to put in, don't worry about the fact the energy programme is entirely managed. It will go to the relevant, say, engineering programme or something like that. So we can fund energy responsive mode, and we do welcome that. So a little bit more about working in partnership. So we have our Supergen consortia. So for anyone that's not familiar with those, that's sustainable power generation and supply. So these are in areas such as renewables, fuel cells, networks. These are large consortia of both academics and industrialists that focus on particular sustainable power generation areas, and we've got 14 of those. We have other things in terms of working with industry. So we have a nuclear, for example, nuclear letter of arrangement group, which advises us on our research into nuclear. We have direct partnerships. So we have direct partnerships, for example, with E.ON, EDF. For example, with Sustrans, we had a joint call with them into research on walking and cycling. So we can do direct partnerships with companies. And I've mentioned before how we work with other funders. And International, so we've got a lot of things going on with that. We've recently closed 2 calls with with China, so with the NSFC and also with the Chinese Academy of Sciences in the areas of carbon capture and storage and solar fuel, solar cells and fuel cells. We also work with India on a number of things. We had a workshop with India on nuclear research, so there's a lot of international collaborations going on. Some examples of current activities that people might want to consider engaging with. So I mentioned our SuperGen consortia before, so we've got 14 of those consortia, and these have 38 academic partners and more than 80 businesses and other collaborators with those. And they're currently undergoing renewal. So the first SuperGen that's undergoing renewal is networks, and it's going into a more hub type structure. So they should be really easy to engage with. They'll be associated with a network, and they should be able to take on associate members, so they'll have their core members, they'll have associate members. They should be open to engage with both through academics and industrialists as well. So it's worth knowing about those and engaging with those people if you want to get involved in energy research. Carbon capture and storage, we have a CCS network. The website address is there, so it's ukccsc.co.uk. That's if you want to engage with them. We also have a consortium in ecosystems impact of geological storage. We've got a number of grand challenges going on at the moment. We've got 2 grand challenges in transport and 1 in networks, and I'll talk about those a little bit in a minute. So that. Also, UKIRC is an interesting one. So we fund UKIRC. It's the focal point for UK research in sustainable energy, and essentially it's a whole system. They look at a whole systems view and they input into policy. So there's economics in there. There's physical, environmental and social sciences in there. So if you want to engage with them, that's their website there. So it's ukirc.ac.uk. So it's UKIRC, by the way, stands for UK Energy Research Centre for those who aren't familiar. And they also, for any sort of academics in the audience, they have summer schools. So if you've got any PhD students and you want to send them to summer schools, it gives them some ideas into whole systems thinking of their energy research and things. So it's really useful if you have any PhD students that want to do that. A large focus for us is in capacity building. So we have 12 centres for doctoral training in total. So these are split up between our standard centres for doctoral training and industrial doctorate centres. These have been funded 10 students for 5 years. So in total, each CDT has 50 students. The difference between the CDTs and the industrial doctorate centres is that the industrial doctorate centre is essentially more industry focused. So the students for those centres will actually spend about maybe roughly 70 to 80% of their time within industry. An interesting point to note about these is we're about to fund a network of our energy CDTs, which will provide a focal point for people to contact with and engage with, and they should be open to engagement with industry. And obviously academics should probably have some of these within your university, so you can engage with those as well. But after the year 3, so we funded them for 5 years, but after year 3 they undergo an evaluation of how well they're doing. Part of their evaluation is we're looking that they've responded to the needs of users and that sort of thing. So you should contact that network if you feel that there's a lack or you feel that you can contribute to these. They also take on industrial funding, so you can become a partner in with those. So that's something that should be in place by October. I think that's all I have to say about CDTs. Just a quick note about public engagement. It's integral to the energy programme. It's a really important part of the energy programme. So these are our objectives. I won't kind of read them out to you because they're quite wordy, but essentially the idea behind our public engagement strategy is that we want to both inform our decisions and our policy through societal issues and public attitudes, and we also want to encourage our researchers to undergo public engagement activities, not only so that they can explain to the public what's going on, but also so that they can have that conversation and take on board people's views and that sort of thing. So we have a number of things going on in public engagement, so this is for any academics that are involved in energy research. So we're currently conducting a review into existing literature regarding public attitudes to low carbon energy, and this will feed directly into our strategic advisory committee, so they'll be able to take those views on board when advising us where our funding should go and that sort of thing. And we're also looking at maybe appointing a champion who will keep that information up to date and will present to our SAC regularly. Another point to note is that there will be a number of workshops coming up for researchers that undergo energy research. So these should be early next year sort of time. So it's for people that want to do public engagement or who are doing public engagement that want to do more. Try to see if you want to, if there's any barriers that you can overcome, and there might be some funding at the end to go and do, a small activity or something like that. So if you are undertaking energy research and are interested in public engagement, keep your eye out for that. And I mentioned the network of CDTs before, so part of that network will also be to coordinate our public engagement activities through those. So just a bit of a flavour of our current and forthcoming activities. So we have, like I said, Supergen's undergoing renewal at the moment. I think our Networks Hub call finished yesterday, so that should be going through. And the next ones to go through will be marine and bioenergy. Our transport grand challenges, so we had a scoping workshop for this before to scope some grand challenges in transport. The two challenges that have been identified is energy storage, and the call should be out for that in the summer of 2010. And also the second thing was understanding incentives for transport behaviour change. And so we're looking at having a sand pit or an ideas factory, whatever you know it as being. So that will be towards the end of this year to look into that. I already mentioned our Centres for Doctoral Training. We have an annual meeting of our energy CDTs as well to coordinate those, so they're all well coordinated in there, and they should be quite engaging for you. Our public engagement plans and our workshops. We also have a number of international programmes going on at the moment, so we have programmes planned with India, China, US. There should be a nuclear GeoWaste call going out at some point as well, and something that the mathematicians in the audience might be interested in is our Networks Grand Challenge. So the overarching challenge for that is we had a scoping workshop, I think it was on the 23rd of March this year, and the overarching grand challenge is preparing the UK's energy infrastructure for 2050. And out of our workshop came 4 themes, and these are flexible grids, uncertainty and complexity, integrated infrastructure, and game-changing network technologies. And these are the themes. So the overarching grand challenge is preparing the UK's energy infrastructure, but this is essentially how you plan to do it. And we're looking for proposals that address the grand challenge using these themes. Other relevant activities, I think you've been speaking to about this before, is that mathematical sciences team have put out a call for mathematics underpinning digital economy and energy. So there's up to 5 million for that. It's anticipated that between 7 and 12 projects will be funded. There are a number of objectives, but essentially it's exactly as it says on the tin, so mathematics to underpin energy and digital economy. The call for this closes on the 21st of July 2010, and you can find a lot more information about this in the call document on our website. And the person to speak to about that is Vivian Blackstone, so her email address is vivian.blackstone@epsrc.ac.uk. It's been a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the energy programme, so if you have any more information that that you'd like to get hold of, we have our sort of relatively new shiny website. So the address for that is rcuk.ac.uk/energy. So that's a bit more information. It provides links to all the Supergen consortia as well, their websites and things like that. So it's worth having a browse through that if you're more interested in the energy programme and how you can engage with us. And just a point to finish on, so if there had not been a volcanic ash cloud, I'll be talking to you a little bit more about this, but unfortunately our International Review of Energy was scheduled for April, but we managed to get about 3 of our 19 panel members over here because of the ash cloud. But essentially we're undergoing this review. It's now been rescheduled for October, and essentially it's going to be data analysis and public consultation with these international panel of experts, and they'll be assessing the UK's energy research against other countries in the world. So that's quite a big thing that's going on in the energy programme at the moment. It's just worth being aware of. We have a number of people that work in the energy programme that cover all these areas, so I could put all their contact details up, but you'd be frantically scribbling down. So the best thing is, if you need to find out more, if you want to contact me, then you can, and I'll do my best to help you, and I can put you in touch with the right people if I need to. But I think the key take-home message is talk to us, engage with us. We're here, we're open to engage with new people, and really want to see what the mathematics community can provide for us. So thank you.
I guess that key take-home message is the important thing, because academics tend to be a little diffident about approaching funding bodies as an informed about where they're going and what the advice should be. But wondering if I'm there to dig in. Can I ask for questions? David?
I notice you only allocate 2% to energy policy research.
Okay.
And one of the themes I think that's come out very clearly here is having bright ideas about what in an ideal world you might want to do is as nothing compared with the difficulty of actually doing it. Now, am I right that you have delegated that entirely to the ESRC to handle, because they have a very narrow view about their interaction with energy policy?
No, it's not that it's been delegated to ESRC, so we represent the whole spectrum of energy research, so it's actually handled within EPSRC, and we seek guidance and advice from them. So we have a programme coordination group, so they oversee some of the things that we're doing. So it's not entirely delegated to ESRC, and obviously we fund UKIRC as well. So UKIRC do an awful lot of the policy sort of stuff. So that's so a lot of it kind of goes out to them.
So a responsive grant application to use to do energy policy research in a cross-disciplinary way would not be ruled out?
It wouldn't go to EPSRC, I think that would go to ESRC. So the energy programme itself is entirely managed programme. So I think if you were to put in a responsive mode proposal, that would need to go to ESRC. And we can fund across council as well. So I mean, if it is a multidisciplinary thing, you'd have to make a judgment as to which research council you'd submit it to. And
So it is delegated to the ESRC entirely?
responsive mode would be, it's not delegated, it's just it's their area and they do responsive mode, so yeah.
Shame, because they don't have any money.
So it's hard times as well, so.
I'd like to ask about grand challenges in networks. So could you say a few more words about the format of the call? So I understand there'll be 4 themes. It'll be open call for proposal, full proposals, how it will look like, and the time frame for that, please.
Yeah, so the time frame is that the call should be issued sometime in the summer, I think maybe towards the end of July. We're still in the process of scoping it up and sorting things out, so I can only kind of tell you what we know essentially so far. So the call should be out in the summer. I think it'll be closing towards the end of September, beginning of October sort of time. And I think it was supposed to fund it by March 2011. In terms of the structure of it, we're still kind of waiting for advice from our Strategic Advisory Committee on that. But it's essentially what we're looking for is multidisciplinary, collaborative approach to solving the network's grand challenge. And those 4 themes that have been identified, we want to see a combination of those themes. It doesn't have to be all of them. It can't be one of them. It needs to be a large sort of multidisciplinary approach to how you would address the energy networks for 2050. And that's essentially all I can say really on that. Okay.
If you've got a proposal which could either be submitted to the energy call that's just been made, or as a responsive proposal, what are the pros and cons of the 2 routes?
Which call are you referring to?
It came mathematics to support energy.
Right. The pros and cons. The pros and cons are just that if you respond to a call, then it will go to a panel for that call, so it will be judged against other proposals that are addressing that call essentially. If it goes to responsive mode, it will be judged against all other sort of proposals as well. It depends on how you see it. I mean, it's up to you as to which you go for. I don't know if I can really advise you which way is best, but yeah, it's kind of up to you really.
So no advice at all. Okay, thank you.
Following that question, I mean, what's the success rate in the past on the responsive mode against the management calls?
I think it's about a 20% success rate in responsive mode. I'm not sure about managed. It depends on the activity, and it depends about the money, and it depends on how many proposals we get submitted. So it's that's it really.
Can I ask a bit further down? I mean, this is one of the difficult decisions for where to send their application, which form, responsive language, how it fits in. How willing are you in the context of a specific proposal to give advice on how people should be putting it?
How willing are we to give advice?
Well, say people bring you up and say, I want to do research on X, non-expenditure networks, whatever, are you in a position to discuss how they should go about trying to fund that?
Yeah, I mean, we can give general advice about submitting proposals to us and that sort of thing. I mean, the majority of things, I think sometimes when people contact us is they want us to tell if their proposal is going to be successful or not. So obviously we can't do that. So it's down to independent expert advice. So it goes to a panel and that sort of thing. So we can provide general advice on how to go about submitting proposals, how to write a good justification of resources and write the best proposal in that sense. But we can't give advice on anything more specific because it's out of our hands. It goes to a panel and it's peer review. So
just the question of targeting proposal itself, responsive mode or managed, which calls, which programs might be best to direct the proposal to?
Yeah, I mean essentially don't worry too much about the programme that you're submitting a proposal to, because essentially it comes into us and we will decide which programme it goes to. And it's something I think that academics do worry about quite a lot, about which programme it goes to. But we can, if it fits into multiple programmes, we can co-fund across programmes as well. So, for example, I do some responsive mode for the Process Environment Sustainability Engineering programme. So if there's some mathematical sciences in that, I will get co-funding from mathematical sciences, and they will provide reviewers. So it's not something that I think you should be worrying about. The main thing you should be worrying about is putting in the best possible research that you can, and we'll worry about which programme it goes to and how it necessarily gets funded. So.
Other questions?
Okay.
Thank you very much. That's extremely helpful.
Yeah, I'll be around. So.